Hello and welcome to the show that brings you all the top stories from around the world of women's sports this week that Nancy Gillen and I select. I'm Chris Stafford. It is Season 4, Episode 28 of the News Desk here at With Sports. And we were just saying before we started recording, Nancy, how much top sport there has been recently, but in this past week, and we're going to try and cover some of it anyway, the World Athletics Championships, the start of the Tour de France for women, the first ever, the Euros, the European Football Championships, and then golf, major golf tournament. It's just been an extraordinary week, isn't it? And that was just the headlines. You know, there's cricket and there's a lot of other things going on, but we are suddenly overwhelmed with women's sports.
We are, yeah, and it's been. I've been lucky enough to go to a few events myself, and then as well Commonwealth Games. Hopefully, get to a bit of that. So yeah, there's been so much happening, and it's been great to actually go to sporting events as well.
Yeah, it isn't always nice to get to them, and I envy you there being in Europe because, we did have the World Athletics Championship here in Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon, on the west coast there, which just finished up. That was an amazing competition, Nancy, and I know you've been distracted by the football. It's like hard to know where we want to start this week, but overall, trying to keep up with what I can of the highlights from those World Athletics Championships. Lots of records were broken. It was a fantastic 10 days of competition over there, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And like you said, it was a bit hard to kind of keep up with because I think the time zone just where it was taking place, the time difference was a bit tricky. So normally kind of waking up and seeing what was happening. But when you did kind of wake up and saw recaps and videos, it was pretty incredible stuff. A lot of world records falling. So yeah, it was, I think again with the Commonwealth Games, not everyone will be at that, but that's quite exciting that the athletics competition should be really hotting up. And yeah, it's a very entertaining sport at the moment.
It certainly is. And I know, as I said, the Tour de France just started yesterday on Sunday, the 24th. And when we've got the Euros still coming, as we said, we've got quarterfinals to talk about that we said last week. We would talk about those before we get into the semi-finals this week, reaching the final a week's time at Wembley on next Sunday. So since we started talking about the World Athletics Championships, which have wrapped up, well, let's do our own review of those, Nancy, because as you said, records were being broken. There was some fantastic sport over there. I think we should probably start with the American Sydney McLaughlin in the 400-meter hurdle, breaking her own record there to break the world record yet again. She makes it look so easy.
Yeah, I mean, it is really, really incredible what she's doing at the moment. So yeah, running in 50.68 seconds, which beat her own record of 51.51, which she set only last month. I think it was at the qualifiers. I think that she set that pass record. And yeah, she is just getting faster and faster. I think as well, it's important to remember that the women's 400-meter hurdles is actually a really strong field. There's a lot of really big names, and we had Delilah Muhammad, another American who for the 2019 World Championships won gold and also held the world record herself, broke it twice herself, and it kind of seemed like she had the edge over McLaughlin for quite a while, and now it's kind of swung the other way, and no one can seem to beat Sydney McLaughlin. So it's not even like she's in a field where it's kind of just her, and that's why she's winning. It probably is because it is so competitive. It's pushing everyone to go faster, and that's why world records are breaking. But yeah, I think I saw that she's broken the world record 4 times in the past 13 months now, which is absolutely incredible.
It's extraordinary. You mentioned Dalilah Muhammad, though. She was coming around the bend in that final. It looked like her race, but Sydney just came past her just as if she had an overdrive. It was extraordinary. But she put it, it was some serious competition there. And in second place was the Dutch girl, Femke Bol. Now, I don't know. There was like 4 Americans, I think, in that in that final. But there's just something about Sydney that she's able just to keep coming out and getting stronger, but as you say, being pushed and breaking records, and just seems to be getting stronger and stronger. And there's a lot more to come from her. Of course, she won't be taking part in the Commonwealth Games, obviously, but we've got the Olympics in 2 years' time, Nancy.
We do, and I can't quite believe how... I mean, I know we had the last Olympics pushed back by a year, so the gap between games is smaller, but it is kind of mad that this time in 2 years we're having Olympics, and that is kind of, I think, the pinnacle of... That's, we've got the 4-year cycle, that is what everyone works towards, so... Yeah, the people that are on top of their game now will be hoping they can keep up that form come Paris.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the 200 metres as well, because we were talking about Jamaicans last week. Shelley Fraser-Price and Elaine Thompson-Herah, of course. But Shericka Jackson, the Jamaican, she stole the show in the 200 metres, didn't she, with a tremendous performance.
Yep, and it was the second fastest time ever. So... She ran in 21.45 seconds. And it's Florence Griffith Joyner's world record of 21.34 seconds that she came so close to breaking. And that world record has been in place since 1988 to show just how tricky, the fact that no one has broken that yet shows how hard it is to get close. And yeah, Shericka Jackson did that. So, yeah, it was Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price came second after winning the gold in the 100 metres. So she's had a really, really good World Championships. And to break up the Jamaican dominance, Dina Asher-Smith, the British star, she did actually lose her world title because she did win the 200 metres at the 2019 World Championships, but she finished with bronze this year, which I think she will be happy with. In interviews after, she said she's had a really hard season, getting injured at the Olympics last year, and her grandma died as well in May, and she was struggling with that. So I think after such a tough season, she'd be really happy with a bronze medal. And I don't know if you saw it, but there was a really brilliant interview after with Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price and Dina Asher-Smith. Just where they're joking around a lot. I think the interviewer asks Fraser-Price when she's going to stop winning medals, and then Asher-Smith jokes about saying, "Oh, when you're going to have another child, so you can stop competing against us." And then Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price was talking about Asher-Smith's Jamaican heritage as well, and kind of, I suppose, taking that bronze medal for Jamaica as well. So yeah, if you haven't watched that, I think it's well worth a watch because both of their personalities come out a lot.
Yeah. I'll have to try and find that. I haven't seen that yet. No, I saw Shericka's interview and some of the others. But the other one I have not watched yet is where the American runner, won the 800 metres. We talked about after the Olympics. We talked about her a lot, actually, during the Olympics. But anyway, she won that 800 metres ahead of Keely Hodgkinson, the British girl, and the Kenyan Mary Mariah. So that was... another terrific performance by her. Again, she's American, so she won't be at the Commonwealth Games. But I'm wondering how many, top performances we're going to see from the British runners, the Commonwealth Games athletes who will be competing, because the Commonwealth Games comes up, pretty quickly after the World Championships.
Yeah, the Commonwealth Games starts this week, and I think they have played with the schedule a bit, so the athletics is towards the end, but it is quite, two quite big competitions in close proximity to each other. I don't know enough about, the human body and being an elite athlete to know if that's a benefit or a disadvantage. Like, do you just keep in the same state and do you just continue to be in that competitive state that you are for a big competition just for a bit longer, or is it of detriment because you're knackered after running in a world championship race? I don't know. Maybe it could go either way for the athletes. But yeah, that 800 meter race was pretty incredible. It's definitely worth watching because I think there's a real rivalry developing between Keely Hodgkinson and Afing Mu. And Hodgkinson did come pretty close, but I think she will be relieved that Mu's not going to be at the Commonwealth Games because at the moment she's not really getting a chance at gold, and that Commonwealth Games run will probably give her a good chance of getting gold there. yeah, I think it's going to be really, they're both incredibly young. They're both 20. So that's just going to be such a fascinating contest to watch. You know, that all the events that are happening in the coming years. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Well, we should mention that the Americans went on to win the 4x100 meter relay on Saturday, and the Jamaicans had to settle for the silver medal. Kemba Nelson, Elaine Thompson, Hurrah, Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price and Sherika Jackson. You would think, yeah, you know, your money might have been on them given the performances in the sprints and middle distance earlier in the week, but no. It was America's gold medal, and Germany finished in third place. But yeah, I guess the Americans and Germans, all the non-Commonwealth countries now, are going to take a bit of a break. But you've got a lot of Commonwealth countries that may be coming from Oregon directly to Birmingham for those Commonwealth Games, which start this week. What day do they start again, Nancy?
It's the 28th, so that's Thursday.
Okay. All right, so we've got that overlapping the Euros, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But all in all, a terrific World Championships there for athletics fans, and lots of highlights which you can now see online. You can just go to their website, worldathletics.org, and they've had tremendous coverage on there, I must say. Radio, live radio, and all the video highlights as well. Right, let's talk about Brooke Henderson winning the Amundi Evian Championship for her second major title there. Now, she's number 6 in the world rankings, isn't she? She's only 24 still, but that was a great win for her.
It was, yeah, her second major championship title. I think she had a really long 6-year wait, I think it was. So that was probably quite frustrating for her. So, yeah, she finished ahead of Sophia Schubert, an LPGA rookie. So that was a very impressive performance for her, kind of right at the start of her career. And then there were 5 players tied for third. So Mao Sego, Lydia Ko, Charlie Hull, Hiyu Kim, and Carlotta Siganda. Mm-hmm. So the Brooke Henderson, she had won the Women's PGA Championship in 2016 at the age of 18. So probably winning that so young had made I don't know, maybe she kind of expected that she'd go on and win more, but yeah, it's come 24 for her next one. So I'm probably thinking she probably wants her third one to come a bit quicker.
Yes, I'd imagine not wait so long. I think she had her sister with her as well. I think that makes a bit of a difference. Whenever she's won, she's had her sister as caddy. So, a tremendous win for her. And that was the Evian Resort Golf Club this past weekend. And I think she won $1 million, which is in France, by the way. And yeah, everything was happening in France this weekend. As you found out, you're going to tell us about in a moment. I think she won $1 million, didn't she, with that?
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprised me. And golf is very, it's one of those sports along with tennis where the prize money is actually pretty decent.
Yeah, it is pretty decent. Yeah, and she's now, as I say, number 6 in the world rankings. So, congratulations to that Canadian player. All right, we're going to stay in France because you were able to pop over. We talked about this last week. You were going to get the chance to go over and see the start of the first ever women's Tour de France in Paris. How was that? How was the atmosphere, Nancy? Yeah,
it was really, really good. It was a very, very hot, sweltering day in Paris, but I think it kind of just added to it. You know, it was like blue skies, really, really nice. And yeah, people definitely came out. I think it's always an interesting, maybe slightly risky move when you put a women's event and a men's event on the same day. So the idea was that as the women's Tour de France started, the men's finished. So it was all, you know, on the Champs-Élysées. So the women went off from the Eiffel Tower and then did, I think it was 11 laps basically of the Champs-Élysées up to Arc de Triomphe, back down again. And then, so after they finished that in the afternoon, the men would come in and finish on the same route, kind of a few hours later. So yeah, it's always a bit risky because is it like, you know, will the men's event overshadow the women's event? But I don't think that was really the case. I think people turned up early and lined the streets probably made, even if they were just getting a place for the men's one, they were still there watching the women. So it was a really good atmosphere. Like, there were people kind of along the whole route. And yeah, so I got to, because I went with Zwift, which is like the electronic virtual like cycling platform. So they had a race car which I could go in, which I did similar thing that I did in the Paris-Roubaix, which I think I spoke about on the podcast. It was very different to Paris-Roubaix because obviously that's quite a longer course going over cobbles, finishing in one place, ending in the other, compared to this, which was kind of 11 short laps of the same route. So it was very different. But it was still really cool to, be on the course and like see all the riders up close. It did end up, it was a pretty kind of exciting finish, with, Marianne Vos looking like she was going to take it. But then, Lorena Wiebes, just coming in after on the sprint finish and taking the yellow jersey. But then today in the second stage, which unfortunately I didn't get to watch as I was coming home from France, but I've since caught up on Marianne Vos won the second stage, so she's now got the yellow jersey, and yeah, it's looking good. I think obviously she's won everything. She's a legend in cycling. Whether she can hang on to it with some of the stages getting a bit more hilly and mountainous after this, I don't know, but I think it's incredible to see her in the yellow jersey of the Tour de France. It's something that she hasn't been able to do in her career. Kind of one of the only big things in cycling she hasn't done. So I think it's very fitting that she's currently got that jersey.
Yeah, because she's 35 now, isn't she? And as you said, she's done absolutely everything. They don't call her the cannibal for nothing. She really has an extraordinary dominance in the sport. And I did read that she did start off as a skater because she's Dutch, and that's not surprising, until she took up cycling. And she's done a bit of everything, hasn't she, in cycling, from road to cyclocross and mountain biking and track. She's done a bit of everything. So, I mean, this would be, and one, I mean, her record, well, we haven't got all day. I mean, her record is extraordinary. And I don't know where to start or finish with her record. It really is an amazing career. She's dominated those two wheels for a long time in a lot of disciplines. So this, as you say, would be the icing on the cake for her if she could pull this off.
Yeah, definitely. And there are a lot. It is a really strong peloton, but even though she's kind of towards the end of her career, she is still really kind of a big threat, and people are probably quite intimidated by her. So, yeah, I mean, never say never. I don't think it's impossible. So yeah, she would be quite a fitting winner if she was to win it overall. But yeah, another 6 stages to go. So that's ending on 31st of July. So a lot could change until then.
Indeed. All right. But for the moment, after stage 2, she does wear that yellow jersey. So, good luck to her and the rest of the field. I looked at the number of teams that they had there starting, Nancy, but do you know roughly how many riders actually started yesterday?
I think it was up to 128, I think it was. And I'm pretty sure the majority raced, so probably around that number.
Yeah, it looked fantastic, and I'm still looking at the images, following them on social media. There's some terrific images coming out of there, photos and videos of that second stage. And it looks very impressive, I must say. It really does. So I'll be following that for the rest of the week. Can you get over there to the finish? On the 31st, so it's the Euros final, so I'm gonna be at that. Oh gosh, I don't know why you're not in France for the closing.
It's too much of a clash. There's so much going on.
All right, well, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But before we move on from the other sports, I do want to mention one story that broke last week. Nancy, you probably saw it, and that came out of the English Rugby Football Union, who voted on gender participation a new gender participation policy for rugby union in England. This is not international. This is just in England. Did you see that story?
I did, yeah. I think it came out a few days ago, didn't it? Mm-hmm. So essentially, yeah, I think it's that the Rugby Football Union Council will. I don't think they haven't put it in place yet, but I think they're voting on a recommendation to ban transgender players from rugby in England.
Yes, and that they vote on Friday the 29th. So, but that's the recommendation they've put forward, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think they've been doing a review since for a couple of years, reviewing the current policy. So, yeah, I think it says, this quote in the RFU, the science provides a basis of the recommendation that the inclusion of trans people assigned male at birth in female contact rugby cannot be balanced against considerations of safety and fairness. So I think that goes down to grassroots as well, doesn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's also, it's interesting, the bottom line as well, which is the RFU has contacted registered trans female players on whom the policy will have a direct impact to offer its support in continuing to encourage them to participate in the sport. So that's quite interesting. I don't know what suggestions they're going to make so they can continue participating. So, yeah, interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, this is a huge decision and, of course, a very controversial topic right now. So we'll continue to follow that with interest, and we'll have the outcome of that on that vote on next week's episode. All right, should we talk about football now, Nancy?
Yeah, always sounds good to me.
Can I persuade you? Can I? I don't know where to start with this. I think it's fair to say that after that quarter-final game, England beating Spain 2-1 last week, I think it's fair to say that you probably don't have any grey hairs, so I've got probably your share as well now after that game.
Yeah, it was very stressful. I was in the press box as well, so obviously you've got to kind of keep a degree of decorum. You're not really meant to...
Oh, no, why? You haven't been in the same press box as I have.
Obviously, I showed my... I had to celebrate. You can't not celebrate that. But I don't know, what sports have you... I think it might be for when you're doing something where your country is involved. I think it's more fair game.
Oh, yes. Oh, very much so. If your country's... Absolutely right. Yeah, if your country's involved.
Yeah.
It totally is. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a bit more understandable. But yeah, no, it was a real roller coaster. I think the majority of the game, England didn't play very well at all. Spain scored, and I kind of resigned myself.
Very polite way of putting it.
I think they really weren't very good.
They did. No, I mean, it was Spain's game for 80 minutes. And we pretty much gave up, thinking, "Oh, that's it. We've been beat. We're out of the Euros." Both born in England, so England supporters. It was all over. I mean, 80 minutes in, and they just couldn't get the better of Spain, who were just strangling them. So, and England just couldn't find a way through. I was disappointed in England in their first half was pretty poor. Their second half got a little bit better. But even so, I thought, that was it. They were exiting the tournament right there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But the thing about Spain is that they keep a lot, and all the matches I watch them in, they have a lot of possession and they have the ball a lot, but they struggle to score and they don't have that accuracy. So that was kind of basically what the game had been. But England they really nullified any of England's threats, like, on the wings and stuff. They were really just suppressing England. So yeah, when they did score, I was kind of like, okay, so they've managed to do the thing that they really struggled to do, to score. And England don't really seem to have any way back from this. Like it wasn't like there was wave after wave of England's attack, and I was like, okay, a goal could come. And then Serena made some substitutions, which I was quite surprised how late they came, just because it didn't give much time for the players that she put on to have an impact on the game. But ultimately they did, and it works. So maybe she's a genius. But yeah, Alessia Russo headed it down to Ella Toone, scored a 85th minute equaliser. Yeah. And yeah, the atmosphere at the game anyway was incredible. And that the moment that went in, it was just, it was mayhem, absolute mayhem, like mayhem. And then, went to extra time, and just something had switched. I think Spain were very rattled by England's equaliser. I think especially because they thought Russo had fouled Paredes in the box, and it shouldn't have been a goal, but they just started getting...
It also was in the home stretch. I mean, by the time we got to the 83rd moment, we thought that's it. Spain must have thought, oh, we're home dry.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, they were obviously very disappointed with it. And I think there was, a substitute got booked for like kicking a water cooler. They were really kind of upset. And I think they did slightly lose their grip on the game. And then, Georgia Stanway popped up with an absolute screamer of a goal. It was a brilliant, brilliant goal. It's 2-1. Yeah. And at that point I was like, oh, great. And then you realise you've still got like 20 minutes of extra time still to play. But we did it. The final whistle blew. It was such a brilliant atmosphere. And we're into the semi-finals. That's the most important thing. You just got to win the match and get into the next game. Sweden in the semi-finals tomorrow, and then Germany, France, which is going to be amazing. I can't wait for that. That will be on Wednesday.
Yeah, I just want to come back to that you mentioned that Georgia Stanway goal, and that was in the 96th minute. So this is how that, I want to dwell on this a bit, Nancy, because this is how that game went back and forth. We equalised it, and then we had to go into extra time. 96th minute that she scored, and it was all over and done with then. But that's football, how it can just go back and forth, bit like a tennis game, bit like any ball game, really. But the atmosphere must have been amazing when England supporters there, and it was a packed stadium at Brighton and Hove Community Stadium, I should say, for that quarterfinal. They must have thought, okay, that's it, it's over and done with. We're, that's the end. And then for England to turn it around in the way they did, and we talked about their performances prior to that. They had scored endless goals. I mean, I think a record number of goals in the group stages. So much was on them to perform better than what they did. Right. And then it wasn't up until the very, the last hurrah that they turned it around. So I think all credit to them, even if we don't get any further, we being England don't get any further, those performances stand alone.
Yeah, they definitely do. And I mean, I think that is kind of what made the Spain game, if we had gone out at that point, a bit disappointing, just because we'd had those amazing performances in the group stage, and then just to be like, oh, we're out in the quarterfinals. But like you said, having the group stage games, having that incredible victory against Spain, and then the semi-finals, like, I really hope that we don't go out, that we beat Sweden. Like, obviously I don't want us to go out, but if we do go out tomorrow, there is the sense of, okay, we gave absolutely everything. There were the occasions, the big matches that kind of transcended women's football and got the casual football fan interested in it and wanting to watch England women play. So it's kind of like, mission achieved to an extent. I think expectations met. But yeah, now you're in the semi-finals and I've watched England women. I've watched England in general, but England women lose a lot of semi-finals. And I really don't want to do it again. So I really hope they win tomorrow. Yeah,
they have lost a lot of semis, haven't they? England women.
I mean, in the past two major international tournaments, so Euros in 2017 and the World Cup in 2019, we lost both semi-finals there. It's kind of the stage we get to, and that's when we go out. So to show real progression, we have to be winning tomorrow, basically. So yeah, it's terrifying.
I think my other team spoilt their party in 2019 at the World.
Yeah, we won't. Well, they're not at the Euros, so. The World Cup next year, that's when we get revenge for that.
There you go. Which the US have qualified for, I should say. Just to remind everybody, we won the CONCACAF Championship and qualified for those World Championships and for the Paris Olympic Games. But to go back to the Euros now, to the second quarter-final there, Germany versus Austria, 2-0 to Germany, and again, an incredible game. The one thing that stood out was the number of times they each hit the post. That was bad enough, and the crossbar. But the faux pas by the Austrian goalie, I think they will be memorable moments too from that game.
Yeah, I mean, they had this, Manu Sinsberger, who's actually Arsenal's goalkeeper, and he had a really good season in the WSL, so I think should be pretty disappointed that it will end like this, basically. But yeah, Austria just kind of were really persistent with just playing out from the back from the keeper, doing kind of short passes between the defender and the keeper, and they nearly got caught out. And then, yeah, right at the end when they were losing 1-0 and had been attacking a bit, it wasn't impossible that they could have got a really last-minute equaliser. And then, yeah, just to have that mistake, so Zinsberger kicking the ball out and it hitting Pop and deflecting into the goal, just such a shame to end it like that. And, yeah, I don't know why they were so persistent with it. It just wasn't working for them. So I don't know why they kept doing it, because ultimately it ended up with them going out of the tournament. But in fairness, I think that Germany look very strong. Yeah, so, Germany probably would have ended up winning that much anyway. But I think if something's not working for you, you've got to change it. And I'm not sure why Austria didn't.
Yeah, you would have thought they went, well, lessons are learned, and they made their exit from these championships. But let's look at the German performance there, or just Germany now, because I know you were favouring them for to be the major threat to take this title ultimately. And has anything changed your mind, given where we are now coming into the semis?
No, I don't think so. I think I really don't want to jinx it, because I was so cocky before playing Spain as well. I don't want to jinx it, but I think Sweden have just been slightly underwhelming with the players they've got. That's not to say they're not going to be. It's not going to be a tough match tomorrow, but I just think in terms of the team they've got and the fact that they've gone far in tournaments and they play so well at the Olympics and stuff, they've been underwhelming. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, they were lucky to scrape through 1-0 against Belgium. That was the other quarterfinal.
And Belgium haven't been, they're not really that great a team, and they haven't been that good at the tournament. Their keeper was really good. But yeah, like you said, there's a last-minute goal against Belgium. It maybe could have gone the other way. Belgium had a few chances. So yeah, I don't think Sweden, France, Germany, I still think that France are a bit, they still haven't conceded. They just look more confident. France looked it was a bit edgy with the Netherlands in their quarterfinal.
Yeah, they had to go to extra time to win that 1-0.
Yeah, and it was a penalty as well, which obviously, you have to be in a penalty box to earn a penalty, but it wasn't kind of coming from open play. Germany, for me, I think have just looked better. So I still think it'd be a Germany-England final. And then I don't even want to make a prediction for that. That's terrifying. I can't, if it ends up being like that, being the match, then it's going to be an incredible, incredible final. But one that for any England supporter is going to be very scary.
It's going to be very tough for an England supporter because, as you say, Germany, to give them credit, have been such a strong team in these championships. The lesser impressive, again, to your point, was Sweden. France, again, was one of my teams that was looking so good at the beginning in the group stages and kind of liked the look of them. So goodbye to the Netherlands for now. And thinking about that final, I think from the semi-finals, there we think Germany have got it, and it will be a Germany-England final. And I have to think that there's a really good chance Germany will win. I'm going to say it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm so scared about it, because I don't think
preparing for defeat, don't you?
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I'm just thinking, that's why it is a scary final, because they are such a strong team and they do have such a good chance of winning. I think you've just got to hope that the home crowd will get England through. I suppose I'd say England has a young team, but I think Germany's got a really young team. I think maybe England have slightly more tournament experience. Like even Germany, Alexandra Pop, she's such an amazing goal scorer, has played for England, Germany for years, but this is her first Euros because of injury and stuff. So maybe there, a bit of England experience will come in. I think there's certain areas where you can see England, getting a bit of an advantage. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be scary.
I think it's also England are going to have a day extra rest in between, right? You've got the final on Sunday. They play tomorrow, Tuesday, so they've got 4 days rest, and Germany will have 3 days. And whether that will make much difference, because at the end of the day, there's going to be so much pressure on England in front of a home crowd at Wembley, sold out. I mean, the crowds have been absolutely phenomenal for these championships. And as you said, the fact that their performance so far, England's performance, has brought crowds to the game that otherwise would not have attended, and maybe have been following men's football, but not the women's. I think this has done so much for the women's game, and it puts a lot of pressure on the home team if they do make it to the final. So Germany have got everything on their side in a way, but they haven't got the crowds behind them, and the crowds might make a big difference, I think, on the final day, don't you?
Yeah, I think especially in women's football, where the crowds, it's not something that you get week in, week out. It is something really special. And I think to have a 80,000 capacity Wembley, who the vast majority will be England fans, like that is going to be a massive boost, like massive. I think that's, mentally that's going to be such a big thing. Yeah. Maybe you could say it could go the other way. Maybe it'd be pressure, but I think once you're in the final, you just use that energy and that support as a positive thing, I think, because there isn't really pressure at that point. You're in the final. Obviously you have to win the match, but I think you can harness the support at that stage. So yeah, I think that would be a big factor in it.
It's a bit like Sydney McLaughlin coming around the home turn there, and she's got a runner in front of her, and it's just the home stretch then, and the crowd, how they lift you down that home stretch. It's just enormous, and I think that applies to a game of football as well. The crowd is going to lift them when they're running on tired legs, and they may be going into overtime on tired legs potentially. But I just hope it doesn't go to a penalty shootout, Nancy.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we don't cover men's sport here, but England men last year got to the Euros final and went to a penalty shootout against Italy, and it was horrible, and we lost. And to have that happen again,
yes,
would be too much to bear.
And those poor young players, I remember the two, you probably know their names on the men's team.
Saka and Sancho and Rashford, all the guys that lost.
Oh, there was just so much pressure to put on them to take those penalties in such an important competition. I just really felt for them, and I hope their confidence has since been restored.
Yeah, I think they have, but it does just show that, how intense the situation is, and how it is, sport is fine margins, and missing those penalties, and it's a lot of pressure on players. I'm sure they have recovered, but it probably is something that kind of lives in their memory. So yeah, I really hope it doesn't happen again. It's
rather like that New Zealand, the Kiwi player who scored how many own goals in that game?
Oh, Michaela Moore, she scored 3 own goals in the first half, which was,
That was awful, I mean, that will never leave you, will it, those kind of memories? But, I think it's going to be tremendously exciting, but first of all, let's get through the semi-finals. Tomorrow, kickoff is at 3:00 British Summer Time. It will be on ESPN2. I will be glued to it, as will Nancy. Nancy, you're going to be there, right?
Yes, I am. Yes. For both of the final matches, I'll be there.
Both the semis?
The semis, the England semi and the England final. I won't be at France, Germany.
Okay.
Yeah. England's final 2 matches, I'll be there. So, off up to Sheffield tomorrow. Okay. So very nice.
And where again is that Milton Keynes, the other semi-final?
Yeah, that's right. So, unfortunately on the day I have a tube strike, so I'm not sure how the attendance might be impacted a bit by that, but hopefully, I know the German Federation are running some shuttles between London and Milton Keynes, so hopefully enough people can get there to make it a really good occasion.
Yes, let's hope so. Well, we will have a lot more to talk about when it comes to the Euros next week, because when we record next week, it will all be over and done with, and we'll be thinking about the Commonwealth Games, which is kicking off. So, Yeah, fingers crossed, Nancy. I mean, yeah, I'm relying on you to cheer them on for me in the stands.
I will, yeah. I'll be cheering them on a lot. Yeah.
All right. I'll try not to get any more grey hairs, and certainly it didn't do anything to increase my blood pressure medication, I have to say, after... And that was only a quarter-final. I just, it was just nerve-wracking, but there we are. That's sport. That is sport. We love it. Nancy, I'm sure you're just going to have a heck of a time, so enjoy and come back and give us your full assessment of those two semi-finals and the final when we record next week, won't you?
Yeah, definitely, I will. And I just hope this time next week we'll be talking about England being Euro winners. I'll probably be in a state of delirium if that is the case, or depression if it's not. So, yeah, it could be an interesting podcast next week.
Yeah, it could be very, very interesting, right? And we'll have also Tour de France, the Women's Tour de France news as well. And like I said, the Commonwealth Games is kicking off too. So lots more women's sports to look forward to, Nancy. So enjoy the final week. I know that you've waited a long time for this, and I know you'll enjoy every minute of it. And I hope it goes England's way in the end, because I don't want you to come on the show next week and be... depressed, don't want to. You might even cancel the recording if.
Just be in bed crying. Well, I've got to do a full day's work on Monday, so I'll be up. I'll be about.
Okay. All right. Well, enjoy that, Nancy, and remind everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is Nancy_Gillen. My Instagram is NancyGillen_sport. And then, yeah, I write for Gimme Sport Women, so that's at Gimme Sport W on Twitter.
All right. And we're, of course, at withsports.com and at withsports on social media. So until next week, enjoy not just the football, but everything else. Anything to do with women's sports, enjoy it. And we'll be back next week with more from around the world of women's sports. So until then, thank you for listening.